Hi, and welcome to the EOU Evening News. I'm your host, Jason Echeverria, and we have a special report tonight on GMOs. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is a GMO? You maybe never heard the term. A GMO is a genetically modified organism. Definition is also known as a transgenic organism, and any organism whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques could be called a GMO. So, what's the history behind GMOs and why do we have them? That's a very good question. So the GMO history dates back to the discovery of DNA in 1935 by Russian scientist Andrei Nikolaevich Belozersky, where he isolated pure DNA. And then as DNA scientists started to break things down, they discovered, for example, in 1980, that you could genetically engineer different patents of living organisms. The Supreme Court gave the ruling that that was legal. And the FDA in 1982 first approved GMOs for genetic engineering, where a humulan insulin was produced. And then by 1994, GMO hit grocery stores with the Flavor Saver tomato. It was a tomato that was engineered to stay on the store shelves longer, and it had a delayed ripening effect. So now we're up to the point where we have all kinds of GMO food crops and GMO-resistant pets and different things. And so where we're at today is that the 5 most prevalent GMO crops in America are sugar beets, soy, canola, cotton, and corn. And I chose corn as the highlight of this segment because 90% of all corn grown in the United States is genetically modified, and most of us eat corn on a regular basis, and so it's certainly one to focus on. So why genetically modify something like this? Well, one of the reasons is that the thinking is because there's a perceived advantage either to the producer or the consumer of genetically modified foods. This means that they can control the flavor, the look and the color, maybe the texture even, the shelf life, and the crop yields can be better. So the idea is it's going to benefit the grower and the consumer by genetically modifying these crops. But there are also some argument to say that it's maybe not a good thing, that we shouldn't be playing God with the genes of plants and things that we're eating, or animals that we're also eating. So, but as we talk about corn, again, corn is genetically modified so that when you spray it with weed killer like Roundup, that the weeds growing in the corn die, but the corn isn't affected, and so it's called Roundup Ready corn. And the so they're resistant to these. So now we have this issue where we're actually getting genetically modified weeds, genetically modified insects that are resistant to the things that we're trying to use to kill them. So, but there are definitely some benefits. There's better food quality and taste. There's fewer animal health problems. There's more efficient production of food. More benefits in the foods themselves, like we already mentioned. There's vaccine possibilities of actually putting vaccines into foods and then consuming them. So the cons or the drawbacks, though, many critics say there are a lot of environmental risks, hence the super weeds and the super bugs that are resistant to the poisons that are used on them. There's collateral damage because the animals and the plants can also become resistant to certain bacterias and grow new ones. There's also yield issues. Some argue that GMO crops don't yield any more food than regular ones do, and when they cross-pollinate, they're affecting the yields negatively. So there's also no long-term testing. GMOs are relatively new in the agricultural and science world, and so a lot of countries have banned them because there's not enough information from studies to know whether it's healthy to use them or not. And there's also been tests to show that their animals have gotten sick and died from being exposed to GMO feed and crops. So those are kind of some of the drawbacks. But as you can see, GMOs are probably going to be here to stay for some time, and it's not going to be an issue of how or if they're used, but how they're used, and it's something that will be interesting as we see going on in the future. So this is our nightly EOU business report, and I'm signing off.